today's book of the day. What are 6 things you and I can learn from the toughest people on the planet? Navy SEALs. Today's book of the day is by Mark Owen, No Hero. You might have heard of his best-selling book, the first one, No Easy Day. I actually like this book better, and here's why. Every chapter, as you read this book, goes through powerful lessons that I don't think you'll learn anywhere else, but literally in the fires of, being shot at, the furnace of life. And these guys come out 10, 20 years having been through hundreds of firefights, situations. One of my favorite stories here, he gets dropped in to a valley in Afghanistan, him and a small team going to try to hunt down their target. Helicopter lands, so much snow that when they lower it, the helicopter door, they had to crawl out as drifts, 10, 15 feet. They're dropped in, basically no support. Potential for death is high. And, it's so cold. He said they had to have chemical warmers for their hands alternating between their guns. And these guys make it through. Snipers, although huge amounts of these Navy SEALs over the last 10 years in Special Forces have died. But the ones who make it through, fortunate for you and I, are starting to write books now to share. And there's 6 things that I took from this book, and I just want to just go through and kind of share with you. You might not have time to read a lot, although I would recommend you buy this book. I'll share with you a little bit later. I just bought a whole bunch of these books, brand new, that from my Book of the Day Club I can send out if you get it in time, because they sell out pretty quick. And I've got a special deal with the publisher. I can get them cheaper than you can buy them anywhere. So first lesson number 1, if you're writing this down, the SEAL community has a saying that each team member has to be able to shoot, move, and communicate. So those are the first 3, actually. Shoot, move, and communicate. This is what will keep you alive. Now, you and I aren't always in life or death situations, but we're in situations where you got to pay the bills, or you have to raise a family, where, you have horrible people that you're working for, or bad customers, crisis, the fires of life. And he says, the definition number 1 of being able to shoot means you have to have the tactical skills needed to fire your gun safely and effectively. He talks about how many rounds that they would shoot in practice. You're talking, I can't remember if he said hundreds of thousands of rounds in practice. So for you and I see this so often in business, people are thinking that they're going to use the power of positive thinking. There's some magic. No, shoot, meaning have the ability to execute on those things that you have to do. And skills in our modern world is the most underplayed, undervalued asset that's being spoken about. All you see in the news is people making $1 million or selling WhatsApp for $19 billion, but you forget the skill. I heard Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, who was a billionaire before he's 30, he said, the movie About Me, there was that movie called whatever, Social, I forget what it's called, but he said, the difference between the movie and what really happened is my real life was me sitting in a room programming and building Facebook, building the skills, the computer skills that it took. It wasn't all flashy. It wasn't all fun. And you're going to see there's another principle you learn from the SEAL in here that relates to that. Number 2, you have to be able to move as a Navy SEAL. So you and I, what that means is, he says you have to that refers to working as a team, effectively and tactically moving around. And, a lot of people many people don't realize that, as Matt Lieberman, the Harvard professor in the book Social talks about, that your ability to interact with other humans is probably, it's the leading hypothesis of why you and I have adapted to have these big brains. You have a big brain, more powerful than basically any other species on the planet. And that's simply because social skills are maybe the most, well, I'll put it this way. Social skills are what truly separate us from any other animal. Now, other animals are social, but not to the extent that they live in a world. I live here in Hollywood, LA, you're talking 13 million people, and you got to be able to interact in this modern world. So your ability to move, the famous book, Make Friends and Influence People, you must have that skill. Number 3, communication. It's all about speaking clearly and effectively so your teammates know what you're doing. You know, I teach in the 67 steps the importance of over-communication. And that is one of the hardest principles for me to teach, you know, when I train new employees or buy new companies and put people to run those companies. It's so hard. Everybody wants to conserve breath. That's what I call it. It's like, words are free. Say more stuff. I was with my 97-year-old aunt the other day, and she was married. My uncle, her husband died recently, but they were married for 65 years. And, you know, I asked her, what was the secret? And she said, Tai, communication. Now, I know that that's cliche and that's trite, but like the Dalai Lama says, there's one thing to listen, one thing to comprehend. It's another thing to make it instinctual. So the lesson from the Navy SEAL for you and I is like, how can we communicate more effectively? And remember, the definition of communication is not what most people think from an egocentric standpoint. It's not my ability to say words to somebody, because they could be doing something else or not paying attention, or I could be speaking in a manner with which they don't, doesn't jive with them. So what you have to do is speak in such a way that they can act on it. And that's harder, a lot harder to do than it sounds. Okay, so that's principle number 3. Number 4. The only easy day was yesterday. That's the motto of SEALs. He said, everybody wants to be a SEAL on Friday. You know, you're in the bar, you're a tough dude, you got tattoos, you got the scars. It's fun to tell your story about how, you made it. But he said, not everybody wants to be a Navy SEAL on Monday when you're out there. He has a story where they had to go do an exercise where they had to go in Arctic water. Believe it or not, they were worried about, there was killer whales in the area. They're in pitch black water, swimming through. It was like under a city or a former city, so there was all these like pylons underwater. One move could not only get you killed, they said one scratch in their gear could make you so inundated with water that you wouldn't be able to rise and you'd die. And they're pitch black. I don't know if you've ever been in the ocean, but it's a scary place. Going in the middle of the night, that's scary, with the potential not only for enemies to shoot at you, but also killer whales out there. But yet, that's what he's saying. Life is defined, character is defined on the Monday when life is hard. So I thought that was a powerful lesson. Everybody wants the scars and to tell the story, but not everybody wants to do. One of my first mentors at GE Capital, Alan Nation, he said, Tai, if you want to make it in this business and finance, he said, I've watched for decades men and women become millionaires and men and women fail. And he said, you know what's the difference between the two? The ones who become millionaires, the ones who make it in whatever they want to do, they're the ones willing to do the simple stuff that the other people know about but are unwilling to do. You have to have a willingness to grind out life. That's the fourth lesson. The fifth lesson, interesting, they got trained to do rock climbing at one point, and he said he was up on a ledge and with the trainer, and you're talking like bare rock, hundreds of feet up, and he got frozen. And the instructor climbed up there to help him, and he said, just stay in your 3-foot world. And he said, I didn't understand what he meant. And he said, what? He said, what the heck are you talking about? And the guy said, only focus on the 3-foot world. Focus on what you can affect. He said, if you keep looking around, you'll see, ooh, I'm high up. Ooh, I might not make it to this next ledge. Oh, if I fall, I'm 500 feet or 300 feet. He said, none of that can affect you right now. But what can affect you is the rock right in front of you. So many people, I just did a talk, I was down at USC University here in LA. And somebody said, how do you deal with paralysis by over-analysis? Maybe you've got big choices, whether you should quit your job, become an entrepreneur, whatever it might be. Well, my question to you is, are you focused not just on the long term, which is important, but also in the 3-foot world around you? What do you need to execute right now? Take big problems and break them down to small 3-foot world right around you. You're on a rock, just focus on getting to that 3 foot away to that next rock. I thought that was a powerful lesson. The last lesson, the 6th lesson, is the review of your errors. They call this AAR. It's like after assault review or something. I forget what the second A, but basically when they go out, there's a story that they got sent in by a commander who did inexperienced. They said, we think there's a terrorist in this house and we're going to send the whole SEAL team there. And the SEALs were like, no, it's a trap. We don't think anyone. And the commander said, do what I say. So these SEALs, including the author here, he got dropped in on this house. And they thought it was booby trap, but they said in the military, when you're told to go, you go. But they said when we got off that helicopter towards that house, we didn't run. They said nobody runs to their death. They said they walked slowly to it. And they slowly opened it. And sure enough, they were right. The thing, he said he went into the house, he opened it, and there was a huge mine, huge bomb waiting to explode, wired, and they quickly moved their way out of the compound, and they noticed the gate, the last step to get out was wired, and they just slipped out of it. They cracked the door just enough that they didn't set off. He said, that's the fastest I ever ran. They ran back to the helicopter, and they called in the gunships, and the gunships blew that whole compound because they couldn't even remove the bombs. There were so many bombs there. There was no choice but to blow the whole thing up. But they said when they went home, they had what's AAR, which is review the mistakes that they made. So you have to have a review after. And Charlie Munger, the self-made billionaire, Warren Buffett's partner, he says the way you should deal with failure is that you should think hard on it, maybe have a crying session on it. But don't forget the AAR that the SEALs have, the review, the after review. Go through it. What did we learn? And he said as a Navy SEAL that it's some of the most intense times that they have. You know, there's yelling, there's screaming. But out of that comes the necessary knowledge to not repeat that in the future. So how much AAR do you have in your life? Now, that's 6 things. There's a lot of, I mean, this is one of the better books. I bought it on the way. I was down in Florida this weekend speaking at a conference. Elliot Hulse was there at his conference, and I bought this book on the way back. I highly recommend. I don't always recommend, you know, books like this, but this one is so good, every chapter. So what I did, I went out, and I like to do this. I bought a whole bunch of books. I have special relationships with publishers just because we sell a lot of books here, and I've got this book. Of course, you could get it on Amazon, but I actually, or you know, from Barnes and Noble or whatever. But I actually have got a whole bunch of these books. I didn't buy that many, but you know, I bought a little shipment of them, and I've got them cheaper than you can buy anywhere. So there should be a button here if you're watching this video. If you're listening on the podcast, I think we can put it in the description, a link for you. So if you go there, you can buy the book, and you're not just going to get the book. We'll ship it to you. We've got a relationship with one of the biggest shipping companies in the world. We'll ship it out to you pretty much wherever you are in the world, and you'll get it cheaper. This book, if you want to read this, I highly recommend you get this, and you get it brand new and cheaper than you're going to get it anywhere else. I can get them 20-30% cheaper. And I'm going to throw in 2 bonuses, 2 cool things that I love to send with books. One is you're going to get instant access to my notes. People ask me, you know, I did TED Talk and different things. How do you read a book a day? I'm going to share with you 2 ways. One is you can let someone else read for you, which is kind of what you did by watching this video. Secondly, you're going to get, when you buy this book on my website, you're going to get access to my notes instantly. We'll email them to you. So when you get the book in person, you can know what chapters to focus on. That way, if you're busy, you don't have to read the whole book. The second thing I'm going to give you is my access to my course and I'm going to give this to you free, okay? Even though I charge for this, I'm going to give you my secrets on how to read faster. Make no mistake, your ability to read fast will be directly correlated with your success in health, wealth, love, happiness, all those pillars of the good life. So go ahead here on the video, click on there should be a button popping up. You go right to the page, enter your credit card. It's completely secure. You'll get access to this book, and you'll get access to my notes and my secrets to reading. So you can reach out to me at Twitter, at Tai Lopez, but go ahead and do this. You'll also get free access. You'll be on my Book of the Day Club. So I've got I think the 2nd largest book club in the world after Oprah. So you'll get free access to that also. So when you do that, I think this book is not very expensive. I think they only have hardcovers, but it's a great book, and you can give this to your kids. You can pass out, keep it on your book. It's entertaining with some powerful lessons, and they're not cheesy lessons. I mean, there's things I've never heard before. So yeah, inexpensive book. You're gonna get it cheaper than you can. But one little caveat: once I sell out, I won't have any more. I'm not a bookstore like Amazon or Barnes & Noble. When I get excited about books, I buy a supply. So first come, first serve. We run out of these very fast. So click the link. The page will show, my website will show you if we have any left or how many. But definitely read this book. Remember those 6 lessons. 6 lessons. The first one is simple, right? Have the skills. Be able to move, make friends, influence people, communicate with people. Then remember, everybody wants to be tough on Fridays. They want to brag, but not everybody wants to put in the work. You put in the work that other people won't do. Like Elon Musk says, you get paid directly to the proportion of the difficulty of problems you solve. If your life's easy, you won't get big rewards. Risk-reward triangle, like in finance. You go up, you take more chances, you do the things people won't do, there's bigger reward. Then remember, as life throws things at you, focus on your 3-foot world instead of freaking out. When you feel freaked out, it's like, what's the next step I can do? All right? And then lastly, when you go through things, big things, and you realize you made a mistake, you need AAR. Make that review of what you did so that you don't do it for the future. Read the book for yourself. Get my notes. Check it out. Book of the day. And remember, I'm putting these out just about every day, but it'll be another book tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. And if you're listening on my podcast, subscribe and then go ahead. There should be a link in the description so you can get the special price on this book that you can't get anywhere else. It'll be cheaper than anywhere else, brand new. So look forward to talking to you. TaiLopez.com. See you on the Book of the Day Club. Thanks so much. 6 lessons from Navy SEALs.